I'm Sonia Mitomo,
And we are AfroSistas.
Our show will elevate Black voices, experiences, and cultures.
Welcome to our podcast, Speak Up with AfroSistas. So today's episode is on our identity, specifically our African and first generation American identity. So today we actually have a quote, and the quote reads, "The identity cannot be compartmentalized. It cannot be split in halves or thirds, or have any clearly defined set of boundaries. I do not have several identities. I only have one, made of all the elements that have shaped its unique proportion." And this quote is by Enim Malouf. So today we decided to have this episode because we think it's very relatable to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has an identity, and we wanted to share our experience in the hopes to help somebody else that might have the same experience, or even people that have different experience, being able to relate to us or learn about other pathways that people go through to develop their identity. So, Sonia, when you hear the word identity, what comes to mind?
I think when I hear the word identity, I usually think about where I'm from. So, being from Cameroon, I think about who, if it's in the context of work, for example, what's my role, what is my profession, my experience, what career, and also education, kind of like, what degrees did I have, what's the training that I've had. I also think about who I am, meaning in relation to my family, like I'm a daughter, all these different things. And what else? Identity. I feel like your identity evolves too over time. Again, like I said, it's really in each context. Like, for example, like in high school, like maybe in sports or something, like I had certain positions, I had, certain roles. In the context of maybe like student organization and things like that. So it varies. Like the quote said, I really like that quote. It's, yes, we do have, I mean, some people kind of see it as having different identities, but I like the way he phrased it, where it's like there's different elements. You have one identity, but there's so many different elements to that identity.
Yeah.
So for you, what do you, when you hear the word identity, what do you think of? What does that mean to you?
When I hear the word identity, I kind of think of what makes a person. So I think of, like you said, like who am I? What makes a person? For me, it really starts like at infancy. So again, being a child, growing up, kind of the upbringing that you received, the values that you receive from your parents, and then the values that you yourself, when you start to really mature, that you yourself start to follow. Again, it then goes into like the roles, like being a student, and then being a parent, being a stepchild, and so much. Like it's a lot of things. Like I think the quote again was perfect. That there's so many elements, but you're one person, so you do have one identity, but there's so many elements
to it. I like that a lot. So the definition of identity actually is it includes the many relationships people cultivate, such as their identity as a child, like we mentioned, friend, partner, and parent. It involves external characteristics over which a person has little or no control, such as height, race, or socioeconomic class. Identity also encompasses political opinions, moral attitudes, and religious beliefs, all of which guide the choices one makes on a daily basis. Yeah, I like that adding, because again, how I was saying how identity evolves. I think it also has to do with the choices that you make. It kind of changes or forms your identity in life also.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So
we can move on to, I guess, another question. If I or someone else asks you who you are, how do you usually respond?
Yeah. So for me, I think the first thing when somebody asks me like who I am or like what's my identity, I always kind of think of like I kind of throw it back at the person, and I think as the person. So I'm like, well, the first thing that people when they see me, the first thing that they see is that. I mean, I think there's two things. They either see that I'm black or that I am a woman. And both of that plays into my identity. I am both. I am black and I'm a woman.
Yeah.
So both of that plays in my identity. But then for me, the next thing that comes up is where I'm from. So I am black, a woman, and I'm from Cameroon, and I grew up in the United States. So I have this complexity. So it's not just one thing. It's this complexity of different things, and that's usually what comes to mind for me. Is being black, a woman, being a Cameroonian African, and growing up in the United States.
Yeah.
What about you? What usually comes when someone asks you, who are you?
I think it's very similar. I usually, when someone asks who I am, well, I would start, staying by my name.
True.
I would say, I'm Sonia Midomo, or just Sonia, it depends on, again, what context it is. If it's professional, I usually would say my last name too. And then, it goes, usually people, once I say, who I am, like my name, I feel like usually in normal conversation leads to questions like, oh, where are you from? I feel like I always go to that. So I'm Sonia Mitomo, because it's obvious, like you said, I'm not going to usually respond and say I'm black and I'm a woman, because you see that. So the next thing for me would be, I am from Cameroon. And then, some people would ask, oh, Cameroon, where's that? If they don't know where it is. It's a country in Africa. So I go into explaining, where it is. And, also another thing similar to you, when people, once they hear, because I start with saying that I'm from Cameroon, they're like, oh, really? They'll probably say something like, you don't have an accent or something, blah, blah, blah. Like, you speak English so well or something. Yeah. So that's where I go into explaining to them that, I grew up here. So I'm from Cameroon, but I grew up here. Obviously, I had an accent when I came here when I was younger, but it went away really fast. And again, I may, depending again on where it is, I may also go into, I start going, because I start with, where I'm from, I may go into explaining, for example, I am, my village, where I'm from, and also the significance. I'm the chief's daughter, I'm a princess. In English, I would say I'm a princess, and explain to them, they're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, okay. So then I explain to them how, my dad's a chief, a traditional chief, and, it means that we're, in a way for them to understand, I usually say, he's the king of our small village. So, that goes into a whole nother discussion. So I feel like most of the time I usually answer like that. And in other contexts, I wouldn't always talk about that, but talk about other things I'm a daughter, I'm a, whatever else. This is a part of my identity. Yeah.
So, through our research, we found that identity is usually formed during one's adolescence. So, Eric Erikson, who is a psychologist, kind of came up with life cycle stages. And during your teen years, your adolescence, you go through what is called identity versus role confusion. So it's really the time, and we say that a lot. I think, when we talk about adolescence, a lot of the times we say that, that's the time that one forms their identity. That's the time that one really kind of starts to think about the morals, the value, the things that they want to pursue in life. So it makes sense, that is really the period when one kind of forms the identity and really discover who they are. But then there's also this side of, if you're not able to kind of decide who you are, you go through that role confusion when you're not able to really attain one path. You choose a different path and are not really able to just settle to one. So that kind of brings us to our next question. What multiple roles do you hold in your life?
Oh, there's a lot. And I'm sure I'm gonna miss like a whole lot, but off the top of my head now, I am a woman, like we said. I am Black. I am African. I'm Cameroonian. I mean, there's so many. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm an aunt. I am a working woman. I'm a businesswoman. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's what I can think of right now. Yeah. Sometimes I think, I guess we're talking more in the present because when you think about, having that role confusion, I think sometimes too, you're so, like, you're looking into, okay, like, I'm going to be this, like I'm going to, but that I'm going to be because it's not yet.
Yeah.
You still have a choice to make, and like in career and like education and even in life in general, like whether am I gonna be a wife, am I gonna be a stepmom, there's so many different
definitely
different ways to go about it.
Yeah.
So.
I think what you said, like, it's a choice, and as you evolve, as you grow, as you mature, certain things come into prospect, like being a mom, or being a CEO, or owning a company, or something like that comes into prospect. So I definitely think that identity is something that evolves over time, like you were saying, and also by the choice that you make.
Absolutely. So how about you? What are the multiple roles that you hold right now?
So the multiple roles that I hold right now, again, being a woman, being Black, being Cameroonian, also, like, I hold the nationality of United States, being American, and being a daughter, being a sister, being a stepdaughter, being a mom, being a wife. Like, there's so many.
There's so many.
Being a worker.
Roles, exactly.
And being a podcaster.
Oh yeah. YouTuber,
right? A YouTuber.
There's so many.
Right, and there's so many. So being an aunt, there's so many roles that we play in our lives that whether it's career wise, whether it's parenting and different things like that. So that is really amazing.
Yeah, I like that. And it goes into I think it's very important because we're similar, so we have similar experiences, but then again, I think our experiences are different. We both grew up here, but we're from Cameroon, so we both were born in Cameroon. Actually, I was born in Cameroon too, and then we came here at an early age. So growing up, how did you feel growing up here, like in terms of identity? What was your experience growing up here?
So it was mixed. Like, I have mixed feelings about it. So, at first when I moved up here, I didn't really feel like I fit in. I think, like, if we talk about like fitting in, like, there was definitely like a mismatch. Like, I very much didn't feel like this was home. I very much felt like a stranger. Like, there was just this feeling like I didn't belong, and that really, especially since I came here. I mean, it might be different for you because I know you came here at a younger age. I came here like right in most of my teens, and that's when you're like developing your identity and all. So I was kind of thrown in there, and I was like, oh. Okay, like, I had this heavy accent. I didn't know a lot of people. And I think my mom really tried to impart in us like our values, like our African values. So like you have to respect your elders. You know, you don't talk back when somebody's talking back to you. You have to like respect anybody that's older than you. I mean, like even if the person is just like a year older than you, like you have to respect them.
Respect your elders.
So for me, it was kind of like a shocker when I came here. Like the first thing that was very shocked, that kind of was like, wait, what? Is like, some people don't respect the elders here. So I was just like, wait, what? You don't get an ass whooping for talking back to like your teachers or like any of your elders. Like that was like a culture clash shock for me. Like, you know, culture shock for me. And like that really kind of like made me really think about the values that I held. Like, you know, at some point I wanted to rebel and be like, oh, I want to fit in. Because, you know, again, as a teen, like that's when you're forming that and you want to fit in so much with your peers that I kind of wanted to rebel. But my mom was very like strong and like, no, like this is the way, you know, like this is like how you're going to grow up. And thankfully it's stuck, and that's the same values that I have now, where like I respect my elders, I don't talk, you know, back to people. And I hope to impart that to my children, like those same values, and for them to continue it. But again, I think it was hard fitting in, and I think if it wasn't again for the molding of my mom, and also finally finding like a community here. So first when I, you know, when we came, it was kind of just like my mom, my siblings, and that was like it. And then like a few friends that I made, but then we really started to get involved in the community, whether it was like the Cameroonian community, like meeting you guys.
I know, that's how we met.
Meeting you guys, meeting, you know, a bunch of other Cameroonian families through like my mom going to, they're called réunions. I don't even know what they're really called in English, but like just meetings, I guess. And you know, building that community. That's when I started to know more Cameroonian, and I started to know more Cameroonian that had the same kind of like identity as me, where it was like Cameroonian, and they were growing up here too. So that really helped me, because I was like, oh, they're following the same rules that I am. I'm not alone in this. Like they're going through the same journey as me. And then the second thing for me that's always been a big thing, and I didn't even mention it before, but like even my church community has always been a big thing. So being Christian, like that's part of my identity, being Catholic, and that definitely really also played a part in my beliefs and my values. And you know, that community also really helped me kind of grow my identity, or be the person that I am today. What about you?
So for me, growing up here, like you said, I came here a little bit younger. I think I was 8 when we got here. So it was, you know, just like you. I mean, it was a shock too. But I think that it took me, like it was faster for me to learn. I definitely learned English quicker, like I said, and I think my accent went away faster. But it was still a shock. You know, I'm here. We got here. We spoke. Actually, we were fortunate. When we got here, we were in a French school for a few years, a private French school. So I really liked that, because keeping our language, not our native language, our French, you know, our French, not our, when I say native, I'm saying my village, our village's dialect. So it was very important for my parents for us to keep speaking English, and for us to, you know, for me, for example, at my age, my younger brother, I mean, he knows how to write and read in French too, but not at the same level. Just like me, I don't think I have the same level of French and English as like my sister, or my older sisters, or, you know, one of my sister, for example, who she's like French. So she I went to school, she grew up there. But I was fortunate enough, because we were in that school, to be able to still, you know, like I said, just continue going to school and being able to read, write, and speak in French. So not only was it, that was happening in school, but it also happened at home. So at home, when we got home, it wasn't no, like speaking English. Like that's something that actually when I see now, I'm like, oh, like when I see other younger kids, whether it's cousins and they're like speaking in English at home, I always like get just thrown off by it because that's not how we grew up. And it wasn't that we didn't want to. I was, over here, like I said, speaking my English and, getting rid of my accent. I started speaking like, the kids that I was around in my neighborhood. So what would happen at school, we would speak in French, even though some of my classmates, like we understood, so we were most of us were at least bilingual because we live in America, so we understood English and spoke English, but we also spoke French because school was in French. So the funny thing, one thing that I can think of, so like I said, we spoke French at home too. But I remember when I was younger, one of my best friends, when we were young, one day she came home with me. And the funny thing, when I spoke to her and when I spoke in school, I don't know what the term is in English, but in French, je whitetisais. So I spoke with a French accent, like, because I'm trying. So that's something I noticed with me. Exactly. Yeah. I think I was trying to fit in because I did the same thing. I remember when we were in Senegal, I tried to learn to speak Wolof. So like I tried to fit in. So like you said, I would speak how they spoke. And then when I got home, she was like, "Oh, why are you talking like that?" Because exactly, it changed to like the Cameroonian French. So she was like, "Why are you talking like that?" I guess she never heard me talk like that. I think it was the first time she came to our house. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even notice that. Like, I was so used to just switching back and forth.
Off,
exactly. So, that to me is, it was like, okay, wow. But, I mean, another example I can give, for example, is my name. Like, when we switch over to the English system, after a few years, one thing that I always had a hard time with, I feel like because my last name, so Sonia, Sonia, whatever, you can say Sonia or Sonia, whatever. Some people say it differently, but my last name, it was kind of a shock for Americans. I feel like the school chose how to say our last name in English. So now when I say my last name now, I say it how we normally would say it. I don't know if you will call it the French way. Anyways, how we say my last name, Metamo. Even when we introduce ourselves, I say Metamo. But growing up, it was like Metamo. So when they say it in English,
let's try go.
Yeah, so Metang, like some people will pronounce the G, which I don't like. Our G is silent. Say Metamo, you don't pronounce the G. So now, like I've had to like evolve and try to figure out ways to say it. Even in English, sometimes I would say Metangmo. Like I would try not to say the G. So that's another interesting example. But it was kind of difficult in the same sense where if you feel like there's a clash in cultures, but at the same time too, you were brought up by certain values and certain principles at home from our parents. And I also love the fact that, growing up, I think just like you, we grew up a lot around our community. So other, Cameroonian families and other African families too. So I felt like, that was my comfort zone. At school too, I had my comfort zone. My comfort zone were, like classmates who not only looked like me, but were studious like me. Like I would hang out with, I don't know, AP students, but it would always be maybe like, I see like a few other African, it could be black too, I would kind of just hang out. Those were my closest friends. And apart from that, if it's not, someone I identify with, that we have something similar to, like I said, African or black, then it would be, someone who, I don't know, maybe sports, there was always something similar in how I would identify at that time. And the same thing in college, the same thing kind of happened where, we were in a STEM program that, where we encourage people to get like, the highest degree in the STEM fields, like PhDs and MDs. So again, I would stick around either Africans, Cameroonians, other Africans, or that group of our cohort and, my classmates who we kind of, went through all the 4 years or however many years we were, doing our bachelor's together. So it's hard when you're in a place where, okay, there's like a clash, there's maybe identity crisis where you're like, okay, who am I? Like again, another example, like you said earlier, where I always identify, I am American too, but I always identify as being Cameroonian. So I don't know, to me, that always, it shows my uniqueness, it shows my difference. I always want to say, okay, I'm from here, like, and then you can ask all the other questions and I can explain to you. Yeah. It starts like a conversation where you kind of get to know me and we can dissect my identity.
Yeah, I think you kind of went into our next following question, which is like, what challenges did you face with your identities, or do you still face challenges now with your identity?
I definitely do. So yeah, I mean, some of the challenges that I've faced, I think were, like I said earlier, where you think you're on the path to, for example, like when I was in college, like I've mentioned, I think in other episodes, I was on track to be in an MD PhD program, but that didn't happen. So I think for a long time, for many years, I saw myself as a future doctor, a future pediatrician. I saw myself, there was a time when I saw myself as a future singer. So there's so many different things where I had to make a choice. Is that really what I want to become, or do I want to explore something else? Like I said, I identify as an entrepreneur. I identify as a businesswoman. So I've also had, multiple, whether it's network marketing or personal businesses. That also is something where, I feel like I've had to choose. Like that, those were not initially, I didn't grow, like I wasn't, when I was younger, like I said, like it was either, okay, singer or, a doctor for sure. I was like, I'm going to be like my dad, but I also want to sing. So coming to the point where I actually embrace and understand that I love business. Like one of the things that I know for myself, I want to be known as a businesswoman. That's one of the things that, looking back, if someone says, okay, what do you remember Sonia for? Like part of my identity, I want to be a businesswoman. So that I feel like is still in development. And the other things, of course, still trying to figure out what else I want to add to that. There's so many different things that have been in my head, but I'm not going to share now, but you'll see as it develops, And yeah, I think, like, for example, when my Instagram page became public, I had, well, I don't know if you would call it a crisis, but I was like, okay, so what am I? Am I a blogger? Am I an entrepreneur? Am I a public figure? Like, I don't know. There's so many different categories. So I feel like I'm a little bit of everything. Am I a motivational speaker? There's so many different things. So there are things that I'm still developing. And of course, there are still things that I'm going to become. Like, for example, a wife. I'm a future wife. I'm a future mom. All these different things that I can't wait to kind of get into those roles and those identities. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, I felt like you talked a little bit about the challenges that you had growing up, and now you were kind of talking about kind of like, the challenges they had in college, and a little bit like now looking, what is to come and what had to change for you. So yeah, that definitely answered the question.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. So for me, some of the challenges that I faced was similar to you. So it's just like the name thing, that was definitely a big thing for me, and it still is. Like, people still get my name wrong, and I'm like, it's like my first name is the easiest name ever. It's just Lise, and like all the time I get Lisa, I get Lice, I get Lice.
Hey,
I'm like,
Lice.
Yeah, I get Lice, I get Lies. I'm like, what? I was just like, how do you get it wrong? But like recently, the show How to Get Away with Murder came out, and the main character, Viola Davis, her name is Annalise, and everybody can pronounce that. And I was just like, wait, what? Like, rewind. Like, how can everybody pronounce Annalise, but nobody can pronounce Lise? Like, it's literally that last part that now everybody can pronounce. But I was just like, I see you there. So again, it was like, some of the challenges was just like fitting in, again, like I said, thankfully I find a community, but one of the things that was a shock to me and has really helped me grow personally was kind of gender identity. So here in America, like in Cameroon, most people kind of see themselves as heterosexual, right? And before then, like, that's all I knew. Like, when I was in Cameroon, I just knew, like, a man likes a woman, a woman likes a man. And so for me, when I first moved here, and I think it's a shock for a lot of people that move from like Africa or to the Western world, because in Africa, unfortunately, we don't talk about kind of same-sex marriage and things like that, like homosexuality. We don't talk about that. And I think a lot of people, when they first move to the United States, they struggle with that. Either people are seen as homophobic and things like that, but I don't think it's that. I think that some people just lack the knowledge, because I would say for me, like, the first time I saw a girl kiss a girl, it was a shocker. I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, it was a shocker. And it wasn't because I'm homophobic. No, it was just a shocker to me. And again, I think it's just, again, that culture clash. Like, that was not what I was, used to seeing. And that's not what I grew up with. So for me, it was like, oh, this is new. Like, and now that I've learned about it, I've learned to, embrace that culture. Like, I've embraced that culture. As part of my work, I work with people with different sexuality. Sexuality. And I think it's evolving. Like, there's pansexual now, there's transgender. I think we're all learning to kind of form our own identity, and we're all learning to, like, welcome others. But I definitely know that, like, that was a shocker for me at first. Like, I was just like, I wasn't used to that, and it took me a long time to get used to it. So that was kind of a challenge that I faced a little bit, because for me it was just different. So that was a big part of the challenge that I faced.
I actually want to ask a question in regards to, like, kind of flip this question that we just asked. So, we grew up here. How is it going when you go back to Cameroon? Because I always have, like, interesting experiences when it comes to identity. Like, obviously, because when I mentioned, like, actually when I'm here, a lot of people, it's usually you have to be like Cameroonian or actually hear me speak French. A lot of people, when they look at me, they're not gonna think I'm African. They're not gonna think I'm from Cameroon. So I've gotten, like, are you Jamaican? Are you and like I said, it's maybe African too, but they're gonna say, like, maybe East Africa, or are you African American? Like, that's usually what they think. And it's actually funny because not that I don't identify as American, but like I said, I always, even though I am American, I always, if you ask me where I'm from, where's home, like, before I even tell you home or I live in Maryland, I'm gonna tell you, like, the first thing is I'm from Cameroon. And then, okay, you asked where I live. Okay, yeah, I've lived in Maryland, like, for like 20 years. So wait, you don't consider that home? So it's kind of interesting,
it's
because
home.
Exactly. So that's here. But for you, for example, what is when you go back home, like when you go for vacation, when you visit, what's your identity experience there, and is there a clash with people there, like how they view you? Is it
That's a really good question, and I don't even know if I have the answer for it, like, specifically, because every time I've gone back home is, like, for a really short time. I think the longest I've stayed back home is like 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, I was, like, moving up and down, because I was either like, unfortunately, because since I've been in the States, which has been 16 years, I've only gone back home twice.
Really?
Yeah, I went back home for the first time in 2014.
Oh yeah.
And
I
it was
don't know
10
why I
years
forget.
since
Yeah,
I had
you're
been
right.
here.
Uh-huh.
And then I recently went back in 2019. And again, it's always like a very short time, but there's
Yeah,
always
for
so
stuff to
much
do.
going on that like
Exactly.
I'm like, in and out of homes, in and out of like of traveling to other places.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, like, people view me different. They're like, oh,
Oh
La
yeah.
Mexican.
Yeah.
Like, and then when people say La American, it's like, the girl from abroad, the girl
Mm-hmm.
from America.
Mm-hmm.
And they see you as kind of like, having money or
Oh,
being esteemed. Like, the first time I went
yes.
back home, I was in graduate school, and like, I like my aunties was like, oh, La Mexican, like, the girl from abroad, how are you
Yeah.
doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
What do you have for us? And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm in grad
Yeah.
school. Like, I got nothing for you.
I know they always ask that. That's like
I was
the
like, I have
favorite.
me. Like,
Yeah.
you want a hug?
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
that's all I have for you. Because I'm in grad school. Girls struggling,
Work.
okay?
Exactly. That is it. So interesting. I totally forgot. Yeah, I forgot that. That's why I said how our experience is like different. But
What
at the
about
same time, it's
you?
similar.
Yeah, because now I'm interested in learning about your experience.
So it's similar. So for me, growing up when I was younger, I would say until maybe late high school, starting into college, we went back home pretty often, and it was usually for like at least 2 months. Like it's usually we would spend the
Wow.
summers there. So
Nice.
that we grew up we with the cousins and things like that, and it's the same thing where they one of my cousins, actually he's actually one of my best friends, he always calls me la American, like Sonia de States, Sonia de States. That's another nickname that we have. They always refer to us as that, and of course you can tell the difference. Like you can tell, like, oh, this Toala Chapa, he didn't grow up here. So they could always tell. I have a hard time blending in, but at the same time too, I do blend in because like I said, we usually would go back to our village. Actually, that's what I call home. That's what I know. Yaoundé, Douala, c'est vraiment, it's really the village. So that would be, again, that whole clash of, oh, you're definitely American, not American, but you're more like, I got that, like American. Sometimes they would refer to you as that. And I mean, to me, I had a hard time with that because, like I said, over here, I'm like, listen, I'm from Cameroon. Like, I want to always make sure I'm pretty sure everyone that has ever met me will tell you that I'm from Cameroon. Like, they're not even gonna, that I said that. So, there's that clash where over there, I'm like, yo, you see, I'm over here and I'm saying I'm Cameroonian, and you guys over here, I'm back here and you're telling me I'm American. Come on now. Like, I'm from here. I'm from
home.
Our village and everything. So, that to me is kind of the contrast. The other contrast to my identity back home, like I said, I do tell people, but not everyone, that I'm the chief's daughter. My family's royalty and all that, and my family's history and things like that. But when I'm back there, especially in the village, that's something. They're gonna call me princess. They're gonna call me, like, there's different. My identity, that part of my identity, I feel like is more pronounced there, and spoken about. Oh, people know me by name, know that part of my identity. People that I may not, it could be family, just like it could be people just from our village, that I may not know them, but they know that about me even before we even have that interaction. So I think that is the other difference. But I like that because one of the things right now, for example, I feel like I have this desire. We grew up, like we said, we grew up here. I've been here for 20 plus years. And I'm at a point where I'm kind of tired of America. So I've been going through, I guess, when I was answering the question, if I still have challenges, I think it's not more of a challenge. I think the challenge is how I'm going to make it happen. But for years, I've been wanting to go back to Cameroon. because I feel like I, I don't know, I almost feel like I want my children to have the opposite as me. I wish that I kind of grew up or lived there longer. And I have this desire to be back home, to be connected to my roots, I even want to learn my language, our dialects, so our Cha Yimba, I want to learn because I don't speak fluently. I barely understand anything. So I want those things because I want to pass them on to my children. I want to learn more about my culture, more about our tradition, even my family's history. I like our history, and the history of our village is so complex, but I love it. I'm in a phase where I really want to just dive into that and just stay connected to that and just expand my knowledge so that I'm able to pass it on too. I guess it goes again with our identity, where we are in our age, like where, I see myself in a few years, married and having children. So kind of getting ready for that, and those important things, those values and traditions that are important to me, know them so I can explain them and pass them on to my kids. So.
That's awesome. I think this brings us up to I think you talked a little bit about kind of like the challenges, but did you ever feel like you had an identity crisis?
Yeah, I've had a few of those. I'm just gonna list one example because we could be here for days. But I think the one that I can remember, the most recent one, I think, was when I was trying to figure out in terms of my career and education. It was hard because, like I said, I discovered like a passion for business. So I even applied. I was about to start my MBA. I applied and I was accepted, and I was literally about to start my classes. And then I was like, wait, but I want to do an MPH too. But I don't know if I want to do medical school. So that whole, questions of, okay, what should I do? And on top of that, it was mixed into like a specific relationship. And I was also like being drawn to music. Like it was just a lot of things were going on. And I think I was at a point where I was like, wow, like how about I just focus and start a business? I don't even need to go to school. Like what are you talking about? I don't need an MBA. I don't need an MPH. I just need to go and focus on those ideas I've had, for business, and just start them, like, and maybe even explore the arts. Like, what are some things that I'm good at? Like, so I was a little bit, okay, let me just
that
stop.
That confusion.
Exactly. Like, let me just, no, stop it. I'm tired of hearing, go to medical school, do this, you're going to be the doctor of the family. I was just like, I'm done. Listen, I have other things that I'm good at, so watch. So it took me, I think those were when I took those breaks in school, and then I decided, okay, let me go and do MPH. Let me not do, MD. And I still felt like, let me continue. I think I made a decision, instead of doing an MBA, let me just start businesses. Let me just focus on, I can learn in the field or while I'm doing. So I think it was a crisis, more so, well, for me and for my family too, because like I said, they were so, and I not because they convinced me, but I convinced myself and them that this is the path. I'm gonna do MD, PhD. I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna be a pediatrician. I took, like I said, the MCAT like 3 times. So like this was like your focus. You devoted so much into it. How can you just overnight just say okay? But it wasn't an overnight thing. That's the thing. I may have told them, okay, listen, I'm done. but it took a lot. It was a process.
You.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think for me, like, I'm very much, I was very much, I think I'm changing, but I was very much like a type A personality where, like, when I set my mind to something, it was that thing or nothing. And so, like, for, again, growing up, it was like, my dad was pushing the, like, medical school thing too. Watch our last episode if you want to learn about that. But then I decided for me that, like, I wanted to do psychology, and for me it was like set in stone. I'm gonna do psychology. So I think a little bit of the identity crisis that I had, it was when, like, I decided to switch to social work, and I was like, oh my god, like, I always want to be a psychologist. Like, even in, like, forms, like, when they ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, I've always written psychologist.
Really?
So so, like, ended up not going to, a doctorate program to get my PhD in psychology and deciding to social work was a very hard choice. And it was like a very like, okay, like what am I doing? But then it kind of felt right because of the point where I was in my life and also the values that I was holding. And I feel again, like I said, in when we talked, episode when we talked about education and career, where I felt like social work opens more door, and it was a more holistic approach versus psychology was very much like research oriented. And I was kind of like, I want to go to the holistic approach. I want to do social work, and that was the decision I made again for myself. But again, our identity is not just ourselves; it's also kind of like this immersion of like our families and people's around us. So again, I heard like the pushback of like, oh my God, why are you not going to get your PhD and da 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 and this and that? And I was just like, this is my choice, and this is what I'm making, and this is what I'm gonna do. So yeah, that part, and I think recently, becoming a parent, becoming a mom, that is a learning process. That is all I can say. Maybe we'll do another podcast episode on that. But let me just say, it is an up and down battle. And I think, every day I'm learning to be a mom. But like, that's where I am like right now. It's kind of like, I'm learning this new role. And that's all I can say. I'm learning this new role.
I like that. So I think it's important to kind of look at how do you stay true? We talked a lot about, values and our principles and things like that. How would you say you stay true to yourself right now? What are some things you do?
I think for me, it goes back to kind of like my upbringing, like you said, my values, my belief. And also, like I said, I'm a Christian, Catholic. So that, because that was so ingrained with me when I was little, I think I've carried that throughout. Those values that my parent taught me, like respect your elders, respect yourself, kind of like go to school, education is important. All these values that were set, from an early age have kind of carried on. And that is what have helped me like right now be true to myself, because I know again my background, how I was raised, and then in part I'm like deciding with that in the back of my mind who I am right now. And I really want the same for my kids, so for them to have that same background that I did of like the values and belief. And then again, they're gonna make up their own also, but I'm hoping that because they will have that great foundation that I had, they will be able to move on with in their life with more stability. How about you?
So for me, I think I'll talk more about particular identities of who I am, because again, it goes back, like I said, to the point that I made where I want to be more connected to my country, connected to my culture, my tradition, and my identity as, being from a royal family, being the chief's daughter, because one of my mentors actually told us this a few years ago, that I think it's very linked to my identity is also linked to my purpose. And one of the things she said is that you're either born into a family to uplift them, or your family's purpose is also a part of your purpose. Like it's almost like, so I've always, when I heard that, I was like, wow, because that really resonated with me, because I do believe that, that who I am, being a part of the Metamo, the Kimvu family, from my village, Tumbu, is actually a very big part of my identity. And it's a part of who I am. So kind of getting into that, that role, and on top of that too, I feel like to whom, like God didn't choose it could have been someone else who, you know, like God chose me to be born into that family for a reason, to my family for a reason. So again, like just going into okay, those roles, trying to see how I can add value to that purpose and that mission, that vision that we have, and just connecting again, like I said, connecting back to my roots again, going all the way to learning my language, being able to really fit in and being a part of my village, because you know we're born leaders, like we're born, like I said, if you're the son or the daughter of the chief, and you know whether you're you know the wife of a chief or the chief yourself, you're a born leader. You have certain people look up to you, and on top of that, we grew up in America, so on top of that, people, like you said, they think that you have, you know, you have everything, you have money. So all these different things, I feel like, to me, it puts more responsibilities on my head, or more is expected from me. That's pretty much more is expected from me. So in terms of that, just, you know, going into that role and making sure that I develop and become, because I'm always becoming, I'm always becoming and elevating and bettering myself. So bettering myself in that route or in that realm. And then the next thing I would say is be surrounded by people who are what you're trying to become or what you're becoming. So for me, in terms of being, like I said, a CEO, a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, one of the things that I can do, or that I'm doing now, is making sure that I have mentors. You know, it doesn't have to always be mentors that you see physically all the time, but people you listen to, people that are in your, I guess, not your physical environment, but people that you listen to, people that you watch, and things like that. So that, to me, helps keep you in that mindset, keep you in that identity that you're becoming and that you're bettering. Exactly. So those are the two examples that I can think of right now. So
for me, like, my final words for this episode is just that, like, again, identity is something that evolves, but just pay attention to what feels natural to you and what feels good to you. I think that there's so much going on in the world, and especially, you know, like social media and all that, like so much could be faked and misstrued. So again, follow what feels good to you. Follow again, like, your upbringing, if that felt good to you, because some people didn't have a great upbringing. But if your upbringing felt good to you, if you feel like those values added to your life, added to who you are, then continue that and evolve as a person, to pass it on to others. I think, like what you said about kind of surrounding yourself with people that have that same vision as you is really important, or even people that have evolved more than you and that maybe you aspire to be like. It's really important to listen to those people, watch what they're doing, and learn from them.
And emulate, them, because that's, to me, that's how you become that. Like, maybe you're not there right now, and that's another way of affirming and attracting, like the law of attraction. Start being who you want to become, even if it like they say, fake it till you make it. That's literally, you have to practice and affirm it, and then you will become it, because you're practicing and getting better at it, and eventually you will become what you've been trying to emulate. So
so we want to hear about your journey, your identity. We want to hear about your challenges. So please go on our social media platform, whether it's on Instagram at We Are AfroSistas, on our social or on our YouTube page, and let us know about your journey, because we definitely learn through our stories by sharing our stories.
Yeah, and we hope that this conversation will help you reflect. So reflect on your identity, the different elements of your identity, and also whether it's good or bad, what experiences have shaped you and have helped you become who you are, and also who you want to become. So we hope that this has helped you. We want to hear from you.
Yes.
And we will see you on our next episode of Speak Up with AfroSistas.
Bye. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell, and also comment and share.